Welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about the major political gathering in Beijing, the two sessions. With us from Beijing is CGTN business reporter Martina Fuchs. Here in the studio is Zhang. He is the chief correspondent for the Shanghai Wen Hui Daily. With us from Shanghai is economist Pingkang. And from London, senior editor with the Economist Intelligence Unit, Duncan Innes-Ker. And Duncan, I'm going to start with you this time. I think it's fair to say that right now there is a certain level of economic anxiety, uncertainty in the world with issues like Brexit, growing populism that we're seeing, as well as, of course, the election of Donald Trump. How do you think that's going to impact China's economic goals? Because, you know, as you pointed out at the beginning of the show, it seems like these two big economies, China and the United States, are looking in different directions. China's talking about globalization, about interconnected growth. The United States is talking about America first.
Well, it's still very hard to tell what the US's actually end game is in China's case. Certainly, there's still a large number of people who think that Donald Trump's traditional stance of taking a hard position so that he can make a good deal at the end of it may be his ultimate goal. And perhaps his goal is breaking open the Chinese market for US firms, attracting more Chinese investment in the US. If that was the case, we could all be very relaxed and hopeful. But I fear that actually the reality is he's much more negative on trade. And for China, that will be very challenging because although exports play a much smaller role in China's economy than they used to, China is still obviously a massive exporter, the world's biggest. So anything that affects global markets and China's access in particular to the US market will be challenging for the country.
Song, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, he summed up Chinese diplomacy in 3 words: vision, initiative, consistency. How important are these principles in promoting world stability?
I think it's Chinese way to look at how responsible diplomacy means. I think vision means the concept of foreign policy. And China is emphasizing that we are a responsible member of the current world order, and also we support globalization. And the initiative means the way China wants to contribute to the world order, especially like OBOR initiative. That reflects China's concept that the current world order is needing reform. And there are many shortcomings of the system, and China wants to help in its own way. And the consistency means principle of China's foreign policy. And China believes that a responsible diplomacy means the policy needs to be very consistent, and it should not change because of the short interest.
Martina, you've done a great deal of reporting on the business environment for foreign players in China. As Duncan mentioned earlier on, it's not exactly very easy right now. What's the key message you're hearing on that front?
That's right. It's definitely not a walk in the park. You will remember that an American Chamber of Commerce survey in January showed that more than 80% of members say foreign companies are less welcome than previously. And the Chamber said the share of companies that identified China as a top 3 global investment priority dropped to some 56% this year. And 70% of members felt that positive US-China relations were crucial to business, but only 17% thought they would actually improve this year. Now, foreign businesses in China have long complained about a lack of market access and restrictive policies. We know that. And for example, US company Seagate, which is the world's biggest maker of hard disk drivers, for example, closed its factory in Suzhou earlier this year, which came a little bit as a shock. And also British retailer Marks & Spencer has closed its store, so I can no longer go shopping there here in Beijing. The government is now promising further opening up. Back in January, Chinese President Xi Jinping, as you remember, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, has defended globalization and promised promised improved market access for foreign firms. The State Council also moved to further open China's domestic market to foreign investors in financial services, such as accounting and credit and some manufacturing and mining sectors. And also, since February, foreign investors have been free to trade forex derivatives, for example, in the onshore interbank market. So there seems to be some reforms, but many international companies, multinationals and businesses are waiting for more to come now.
Right, they're waiting. Duncan, what are they waiting for? What's going to entice companies like Seagate, or for that matter, Marks & Spencer, to come back and bring other companies along with them?
Well, I think one thing to bear in mind when you hear a lot of these negative headlines is that in any country, particularly with the economy slowing, there are going to be some firms that are better managed than others. And so in some cases, by no means all, but in some cases when these foreign companies withdraw from China, it's not necessarily purely a reflection on problems of the China market. But I think really what foreign companies want is transparency of regulation, clarity of regulation, and consistent application. Part of the problem is this perception that it's very hard to tell what regulations are, and also that regulations tend to be applied fairly arbitrarily, and foreign companies feel that they are being discriminated against, certainly by comparison with domestic companies in many cases. I think that sort of sentiment really needs to change for a significant improvement in foreign business environment for China.
Right, Pingkang, the big success story for China is, of course, the fact that it has managed to pull millions of people out of poverty. 12 million last year, the target is 10 million for this year. Is the country within its goal of eliminating poverty by 2020?
Well, so till last year, China still has about 70 million people living under poverty. So we are within the reach, but still with big challenges. To solve the problem, as laid out in Premier Li's work plan, the government wants to zero down the policy to key areas this year with extreme poverty, and also want to increase the government subsidies. And on the other hand, I think I have to point out that as what has happened in almost all the major economies around the world, in the process of globalization, when the whole society, when the whole economy is getting better off, the rich people are getting richer at a higher speed. So I think the economic inequality is an issue that all the major countries have to face, and at least the work plan has indicates the Chinese government is not taking these challenges very seriously.
Right, Duncan, of course, China has been playing a big role in the developing world as well. In fact, China will take over the rotating chair of the BRICS countries in September, and there is a leadership summit which has been scheduled for that time as well. Do you still see China maintain a strong relationship with the developing countries, especially those countries in Africa?
Oh, absolutely. And OBOR is right at the heart of that. I think particularly in Southeast Asia, places like Pakistan, and one of my colleagues recently returned from Africa, and she reported back that all that people were talking on the ground out there was basically about OBOR. So I think China's economic role in the developing world is really going from strength to strength. So that's one area where we're definitely seeing positive development still.
So, Song, we have that BRICS summit coming up. There's also a Belt and Road Forum that's going to be taking place in Beijing. And Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that that initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative, has become the most popular platform for international cooperation. What do you think China can achieve from this upcoming meeting?
I think this coming OBOR summit will be very important, and it will be the highest level summit since the initiative was launched in 2013. And as I heard, there will be more than 20 heads of the states and governments to join, and more than 50 leaders from different international organizations to participate. And I think China has especially three goals to achieve in this summit. One is to review previous cooperation and connect development strategies of different economies. The second one is to finalize some flagship projects in this summit, like in infrastructure, in investment and trade. And third is to write a blueprint plan for the midterm and the long-term future, and to manage a kind of network of partnerships based on a common interest.
Okay. We've got a bit of time left. Martina, the two sessions, of course, a major event in China. Can you give us some flavor of what is taking place there? The large number of people attending, the media, of course, being there, and so forth.
That's right. Well, there were about 2,500 foreign journalists from all over the world. I met people from The Standard, the Tanzanian newspaper, BBC, Al Jazeera, all the foreign press is here, obviously. Now, Sunday was really a major event, of course. The government work report, as I mentioned earlier, people were queuing up since 4 a.m. On Tiananmen Square to really grasp this report firsthand. And it was a major sprint, all the reporters, running for that. And I feel compared to last year, although it was the first year that CGTN foreign reporters were able to cover the two sessions and enter the Great Hall of the People for the NPC opening day, it was really the first time I could go there, but I heard from other reporters that there is a more open access kind of policy now this year. A lot of foreign journalists were able to come and cover the two sessions, and the mood was pretty good, I must say. We still have a couple of days to go, but there is definitely a lot of news coverage coming out, so we look forward to hearing more.
So what happens in the next few days? What should we look for? Martina?
Well, there are still a lot of press conferences coming up, and then towards the 13th, 14th, we will have the last couple of days of the two sessions, and then, of course, the most important day is on the 15th, when Premier Li is going to hold a press conference and take questions from journalists as well.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. And